we'll simply have to overlook it.
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Are they in the proper approach pattern for today?
Negative.
Hold weapons! Now! Charge the lightning field.
When it comes to Christmas, much of what we think of as enduring forever histories and time-honored traditions are really just ad schemes and marketing ploys. The creation of the holiday, Santa Claus, and many of its highly regarded mythologies are creations of the 19th and 20th century, many by corporations and brands to influence spending and realize capitalistic manifestations. But that doesn't mean that they can't gain significance or that we can't derive our own nostalgia-laced grace from their crude origins. No, Christmas can be magical and joyous, and just because something we love was engineered to sell us something, it can still contain deeper meaning and lasting, heartening import. Thusly, I'd like to light up my bulging red bulb and guide you on the podcast holiday journey with the creation of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Jake walks backwards when he guides you somewhere.
No, it's that way. No, I'm pointing. Do you not? Can you?
Oh, I see. I'm never taking this right again.
Get on board. Montgomery Ward, the now defunct shopping enterprise, was prepping for their Christmas of 1939 many, many months in advance. They had called upon Chicago Jewish Montgomery Ward copywriter Robert May to write a new holiday tale that they could market to their shoppers. May took this job, but was given the option to abandon the assignment. His wife had been diagnosed with cancer, and over the year of 1939, her health was rapidly deteriorating until in July when she passed. But May found consolation in his writing assignment and drew inspiration from the reindeer at the Lincoln Park Zoo, who his now motherless daughter enjoyed so much. By August, May had finished and turned in a story compiled of 89 couplets. It was the story of a reindeer with an abnormally large, shiny red nose who gets teased by other black-nosed reindeer. But on a foggy Christmas Eve, Santa realizes Rudolph's glowing snout is the beacon he needs so that he can deliver presents to the children on time. May said he was inspired by the story of the ugly duckling, which he later wrote had always appealed to him as someone who, growing up, was shy and small as a boy, and who had known what it was like to be an underdog. Though Santa's reindeer had already had names, we all know them, right? Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, Blitzen, thanks to that 1820s poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas. But May had come up with a ninth name, or at least a list of possible names. He brainstormed and began with the letter R for alliterative purposes. Some of those he suggested were Rollo, Rodney, Roland, Roderick, and Reggie. This list is now held at May's...
Just my pal Reggie.
Just Reggie. This list is now held at May's alma mater, Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire, with the rest of his papers. In a 1963 interview, he said he thought Rollo sounded too happy for a reindeer with unhappy problems, and Reginald seemed too sophisticated, but Rudolph rolled off the tongue nicely. As for the idea of the glowing nose that was apt for navigating, that light bulb moment came from looking out his office window in the middle of one Chicago's infamous winter days, seeing the fog from Lake Michigan and thinking of Santa trying to do his work on such a foggy night. But this idea almost got shelved, May would note, after focus group participants said that they thought a red nose had connotations of alcoholism. But Montgomery Ward went with it, they liked it, and they then transformed the poem into a 32-page booklet that they gave out to children for free. Now, mind you, this isn't long after the Great Depression, so it was quite meaningful for them to give it away, and they gave away more than 2 million copies. Rudolph was successful. It was a hit, but May struggled as a single father. He was weighed down with medical debt, but he continued to work at Montgomery Ward and eventually remarried. After World War II, Montgomery Ward gave May the rights to Rudolph, which was quite unexpected, but ends up being quite the win for him in the end. Now, May knew that Rudolph was popular and had promise, and he sensed an opportunity. So he persuaded Johnny Marks, his brother-in-law, to write music for accompaniment. And Marks had been writing songs his entire adult life, already having worked as a professional composer. He published TV scores, radio hits, and commercial jingles. Over 175 original songs. Besides Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Marks composed the seasonal songs I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day, first recorded by Bing Crosby in 1956, or Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, 1960 by Brenda Lee. He also did A Holly Jolly Christmas by Burl Ives in 1963. So, he kind of had a knack for this. After jotting down the title when it first came out, Marks had carried it around with him for almost a decade. When he finally tried to write it in 1949, he said, I wrote it. Easily one of the worst songs ever written. It was just terrible.
Nailed it.
Now what happened is a year later, I'm walking along the street. It's never happened before. I don't know if it's walking on the street or what. I started to hum.
Never happened.
Dum dee da dum dee da dum. Dum dee da dum dee da dum dum. You see, what I'm doing is inverting the notes. Instead of going down, I'm going up.
Okay.
When he finally composed the melody, he was so certain of its success. That he formed his own company to publish the song. He invested $25,000 to form St. Nicholas Music. In doing so, he would fully own the song, as opposed to sharing half the royalty with the song publishing company. Now, Marks began to look for a singer for this song that he thought really had some promise. He approached Bing Crosby, he approached Dinah Shore, and Perry Como was also an option. In fact, Como would have had it, but Marks wouldn't give him permission to change the lyrics when they were going to record.
Okay.
So eventually, it came in front of Gene Autry. But Autry wasn't enthusiastic about it. He didn't really vibe with it. But Autry's wife, Ina, felt that the underdog story of Rudolph was moving and thought it would be the same for listeners to hear that story. They would also be moved and it would be a hit. Ina was right. Autry recorded Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in time for the 1949 holiday season. It went straight to the top of the Billboard's country western and pop charts. Now, although there are some variations in the creation of the song, there's a story that Hecky Cransaw, the producer of children's music at Columbia, the company that distributed Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, that he was the one behind Autry coming on board and that he led to its success.
Yeah. It's like Ghostface.
But it's kind of a little murky. But most people point to Marks being the leader in all of this. But either way,
If you're a Marxist, for sure.
according to the official Rankin Bass historian Rick Goldschmidt, the song's popularity ignited a chain reaction of coincidences and connections. Now, Marks, he lived in Greenwich Village, where he had become friends with a neighbor of his in the area, a gentleman.
Dr. Stephen Strange.
He's more of a Wong guy, really, I think.
I'll say.
This gentleman he became friends with was Arthur Rankin. In 1960, Rankin formed Rankin and Bass Productions, although originally named Videocraft International, with Jules Bass, his collaborator. Forthwith, they began producing children's TV specials. Rankin approached Marks to discuss the possibility of making Rudolph into a TV special as part of the GE Fantasy Hour.
Woo! We all remember that.
As discussions were underway, May's time with Montgomery Ward also became part of this. It seems that because one of Montgomery Ward's people, a Willard Saloff, was now in GE, it lubricated the path to bring Rudolph to the network. Saloff was the VP of Housewares and influenced the company's TV specials, which at that point aired on NBC. In another strange turn of events, it was the GE engineer named Nick Holoniak that first developed the LED light bulbs capable of emitting visible red light in 1962. This was the same bulb that would provide the bioluminescence of Rudolph's nose.
That's funny because, like, first of all, we call that vertical integration in our current monopoly state. But also, that's essentially the origin story of Jack Donaghy on 30 Rock. He was in GE's Department of Microwave Development. And then when GE bought NBC, he gets put as president of NBC.
Art imitating life. By mid-1963, Rudolph was officially greenlit and being made. Because the Fantasy Hours series created a pipeline to market its goods to viewers directly, GE bankrolled more than $4.5 million into the innovative stop-motion animation production. Along with the hour-long special, GE produced 4 commercials featuring the accompaniment of Rudolph's characters. These ads included new products like the electric toaster, the electric can opener, and the brand new electric blanket.
Oh boy.
Rankin Bass needed to transform this poem into a full workable script, so they turned to Romeo Mueller, who they had previously collaborated with on the Return to Oz specials.
Oh, hell yeah.
Mueller and writer Tony Peters expanded the story and the character cast and drew out the themes of individuality and alienation. Mueller was keenly responsible for Hermie the Elf's dentistry fascination and the creation of the Bumblebeast.
Okay.
Rankin Bass trusted Tadahito Moshinaga for the animation. He was a pioneering filmmaker and had developed the first puppet-based stop-motion animation in China and Japan. Now, Mochinaga was born in 1919, and he had fallen in love with animation upon seeing a Mickey Mouse short in a Tokyo movie theater as a child. He studied at the Nippon Art College, and Mochinaga then landed a job in animation and distinguished himself with his innovation in camera techniques that pushed animation to a new level of technical sophistication in Japan. During World War II, he left Japan for Manchuria, then a Japanese-occupied puppet state in China. It's fitting.
Mm-hmm.
Where he produced propaganda films with the Chinese, Korean, and Japanese animators.
And puppets.
In 1947, Mochinaga was instructed to create an animated propaganda film mocking Chinese politician Chiang Kai-shek to drive home the message that Kai-shek was controlled by the U.S. Secretary of State George Marshall. Mochinaga created literal puppets of the two figures.
Yeah, there we go.
The result was China's first stop-motion puppet animation. In 1955, Mochinaga returned to Japan and brought this technique with him, using it to produce a beer commercial that became the first Japanese stop-motion puppet animation. The commercial success spurred Mochinaga to form the Puppet Animation Studio in Tokyo, and his unusually fluid, true-to-life animation technique became known as Animagic.
Oh, wow.
He was one of the leading animators in the world, and during a 1959 tour of Japan animation studios, Rankin met Mochinaga. They would go on to work together extensively. In fact, it was Tad Mochinaga and his MOM production that headed all of Rankin Bass's production. Rankin Bass would also employ many other studios to outsource their work, like Toei Animation and Topcraft, among many, many others. Just like Disney, many major visionaries came out of these companies, namely Hayao Miyazaki, who was on Topcraft's staff and would go on to establish Studio Ghibli after Topcraft's closure. Now, Mochinaga directed the creation of 22 handmade sets, built to scale for the 4-inch puppet cast created by designer Ichiro Komuro. Before filming, Mochinaga had journeyed to Nara, Japan. Now, Nara is home to Nara Park, a deer sanctuary established in 1880 to protect the area's sacred deer population. And the Nara deer are unique in their acclimatization to humans and will boldly approach visitors to munch on food that they provide and mimic human bowing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He and his assistant spent 2 days there observing and translated the details of their observations into the animation itself, with rich, delicate eyelids crafted from leather and the subtle movements of Rudolph. Now, it was a painstaking process to create, as each second of filming required 24 frames of animation.
Mm-hmm.
But they made it work, and it was magical. But they weren't the only ones responsible. Most of the characters that were portrayed in the animated film were portrayed by Canadian actors that recorded at RCA Studios in Toronto. The recording session lasted 2 days, which was then followed by a session in New York City to polish the songs. Now, Rankin Bass chose Canadian actors for 2 reasons. First, while the last radio dramas in the United States had ended production a few years previously, many were still being produced in Canada, giving the producers a large talent pool to choose from. CBC was large enough to enable American workers such as Rankin Bass to get their shows done in Toronto. Secondly, Rankin and Bass were taking loans from friends to bankroll and chose Toronto's Crawley Films to financially stretch out 130 short episodes of Tales of the Wizard of Oz, which made the Canadian labor costs cheaper. Obviously, there were many great actors on there. Burl Ives being a key figure there, but they also had Billy May Richards, who provided the voice of Rudolph and would reprise the role for Rudolph's Shiny New Year and Rudolph Frosty Christmas in July. But in the original production, Billy May Richards, who voiced Rudolph, was credited under the name of her husband, Billy Richards, since Rankin and Bass did not want to disclose that a woman had done the part.
Jesus.
Sam the Snowman was originally supposed to be voiced by Larry D. Mann, but it was later decided that Burl Ives would voice him. Ives was hired to appease NBC and its sponsor General Electric, with Rankin Bass' marketing strategy to employ a bigger celebrity, which would later happen in other specials such as Jimmy Durante in Frosty the Snowman and Fred Astaire in Santa Claus is Coming to Town. But it's essentially because they needed a name that would get GE on board, is why they went with Burl Ives.
Mm-hmm.
When the special finally aired in 1964, it became such a hit. It has been rebroadcast every year since, making it the longest-running Christmas special in history. In fact, in 2016, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, airing on CBS, beat out every show on the air except for This Is Us.
Okay, there's a lot to say there, okay?
But, I mean,
Nope, there's just a lot.
Almost 50 years later, still being almost the top show on TV.
What? Just like Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You, just it broke the all-time record for a single being in the number 1 slot over time.
Oh, God.
Now, it's been 30 years, but so I don't know if that should count or not, but...
30 years of hell. Though Rudolph has become a beloved classic, in recent years there's been some pushback. Some online have pointed out some negative aspects of the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer story. That bullying and ostracization, as Rudolph and the Misfit Toys are mocked, excluded from the games, and told they're useless. Also that Santa is a bully, that he rejects Rudolph and the Misfits, showing them the door, leading to accusations that he is exploitative figure, certainly not a benevolent one, perhaps even the villain of the story. There's also the sexism at work. In one scene, Donner tells Mrs. Donner that this is a man's work when she wants to join the flight practice.
Yeah.
There's also conditional acceptance, that Rudolph is only deemed worthy and accepted once his flaw becomes a useful asset for Santa.
100%.
Suggesting that his value is based on utility rather than inherent worth.
Right. It's not exactly the meritocracy they think they're presenting there. Yeah, and the fact that he's only even moderately accepted when he finds use for the higher class group. And now he's beloved.
Defenders, including the original voice actress Corinne Conley, argued that the story resolves with acceptance and joy, offering a valuable lesson about overcoming adversity and finding your place by being yourself.
Being yourself, as long as it fits into the overarching zeitgeist. Isn't that the thing? That's why I hated the movie 10 Things I Hate About You, the Heath Ledger one.
Yeah.
Where at the end it's like, oh, it's so romantic. He abandoned who he was and conveniently folded into the mainstream stereotype. It's so cute.
It always reminds me of The Breakfast Club. The outsider girl, she's only accepted at the very end. Like, everyone else gets to have their journey, but she becomes prettified.
Right, she gets a makeover.
By the popular girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she's accepted, and it's like she can't be accepted for who she is.
Yeah, and then later it's always the taking the glasses off of the nerdy girl and making her super hot, even though she was probably hotter with the glasses.
Yeah.
and more interesting.
Many also point that, this was a tale told in its time and that it's a beloved holiday tradition and it's teaching kids that being different is okay and they can be heroes even if they're not like everybody else.
Okay. There are some ableism issues going on here.
Oh, there certainly are. Unfortunately, it's kind of been like this argument, especially when it really rose to prominence around 2018. It took a dark turn when it was hopped upon by Donald Trump.
Oh, Jesus.
He had shared a video about some of these observations that were made and labeled it with "liberalism is a disease." And of course, this was also picked up by Tucker Carlson and Dave Rubin. In their segment titled "Progressives Love Attacking Christmas Traditions," got into all of these particular moments. And as Rubin said, they would literally go after a sunset, suggesting that liberals would seek to destroy anything that is beloved, which Tucker Carlson said, that's such a smart point because he's such a smart guy.
Because he is first and foremost a scientist.
So it really shades the argument when it falls into that realm of those thought profiles. But it is a beloved holiday classic. Rankin Bass obviously went on to do, you have the Santa Claus with, Burl Ives, Little Drummer Boy, and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer would return in other specials. But the idea of Rudolph has become a bit of a holiday classic, and it's an interesting spotlight on a department store trying to crank out a story related to Christmas that they can provide to kids to then bring their parents in to shop, that then gets turned into a song by a semi-popular at the time artist that then becomes a big hit where people are then buying the records. And then both a TV studio and a manufacturer of electronics then employs their own programming to create a show and commercials to sell their items in perpetuity. And because of all of this, it creates something that we think has been around a long time. In our entire life, Rudolph's always been around. It's been a staple. Rudolph is of course, one of the reindeer. But when you look at it, it's not that old. It was done for, some might say the wrong reasons. It was I guess you could say a labor of love for the original creator.
It is part of the tradition of American Christmas in general, in that Christmas wasn't even really celebrated by a majority of Americans until the mid-19th century. And when, the Gilded Age took off and capitalism started running amok, that's when you started seeing Christmas as a celebration, eventually for children, but that's sort of a little later down the line. But it was an excuse to buy and sell things in celebration of this holiday that really wasn't that big a deal. Rudolph is part and parcel part of the output of this phenomenon that you're right is not very old. And in fact, though its origins happened a little earlier, it doesn't even look anything like what we see today until post-World War II, and then, believe it or not, post-9/11. So it gets even weirder after that.
Fantastic. But I hope you've all enjoyed this little jaunt through the fog as our glowing podcast, red, throbbing beacon of hope, teaches you about the holidays and on this nostalgic journey into a little reindeer creature and a goofy little elf that we all loved as kids and maybe still love today because, hey, the animation is good, the story's fun, the song's catchy, and you could say maybe the idea of the story is a heartwarming one, maybe not best told in execution, but the idea is still relevant.
Yeah, it's that classic 50s American propaganda film the U.S. would put out about fitting in and about conforming to mainstream society, even though that's exactly what they complained about the Soviet Union. It's right in that wheelhouse, but we're still dealing with it today, so.
It's true. And we hope you guys are still dealing with us next time.
Yeah.
As we explore more thoughts about the holiday season. But until then, if you wouldn't mind sharing, subscribing, if you wouldn't mind giving us 5 throbbing, glowing Red Noses on the podcast app of your choice.
Irritated.
That's the best way for us to get heard and thus seen. And again, we'd like to just thank you. Thank you for spending the holidays with us, your favorite geek podcast, hopefully. I mean, at least maybe in the top 50 of your favorites. But until Santa straps the harness on us, whips us in the bottom, and gets us to ride in his sleigh, Skip, what should they do?
Feel like you and I came from different places just now there, but I'm already in the harness, bro.
Hey, at least you came.
Well, it is, coming to the end of the year, and we're going to have some fun stuff coming up here leading into that. So please be patient. Wait for us. We promise we'll stay chaste until that moment in which you arrive.
Lies.
That is a lie. Please make sure that you have paid your tabs, cleaned up after yourselves to some sort of reasonable degree, been generous to your fellow man in this time of need.
Aww.
And that also includes supporting your local comic shops and retailers. But that having been said, despite being not motivated by profit, because nobody makes money off of the show at all, we'd like to say Godspeed, fair wizards.
I don't want to be a podcaster. I want to be a dentist.
I want to be a dentist.
I want to pull teeth.
Eli Roth's Herbie the Elf.
That'd be better than some of his other stuff.
Probably true.
A new holiday classic.
Please, go away.